92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. I'm live on YouTube. You can find me there. We have so much to get to this morning. I do want to talk about this fake PR stunt where Kamala Harris is having a beer with Governor Gretchen Whitmer. There have been some really cringy things to come out of this election cycle. Gretchen Whitmer, Governor J.B. Pritzker doing this really weird skit where they're in sports jerseys. Then you've got Kamala Harris quite literally faking having a beer with Gretchen Whitmer. She sips the beer barely. I don't even know if she really takes a sip. But it's a PR stunt. And I don't know who thought this was a great idea. It's a terrible idea. She comes off very inauthentic. She's actually caught on a hot mic saying that she, pretty much isn't going to win the election because of men. So, this was terrible. Whose idea was this? Where she has a beer with Gretchen Whitmer and then they filmed it. It was bizarre. I also want to talk about this Holocaust survivor who blasted Kamala Harris for being very disgusting in calling Donald Trump Hitler and comparing Donald Trump to Hitler. He says it's disgusting and that she owes him and all of the other Holocaust survivors an apology. So we're going to get to that. Plus, Kamala Harris says that Donald Trump wants to take away your guns. Yes, Donald Trump wants to take away your guns. She's just outright lying at this point. I'm going to be chatting about all of that here this hour. I do want to open the show with a little bit about the ISU professors asking for, salary bumps. I was going back and forth actually with the union on social media about this, and I saw it on Crystal Label's, she's a McLean County board member, and she was outraged, of course. She says 95% of full professors, no, so not your associate professors, but full professors at Illinois State University are paid below the average salary for full professors in the state. So, they're hoping to say these one-liners like, oh, that's terrible. Why wouldn't Illinois State University professors make the same as, other professors around the state? That's what they're saying with this. But then you look into it a little bit more and you find out that the average salary for a full professor in the state of Illinois is $153,000 plus benefits. So that is, to provide context, that is what the union is asking for. They want to boost their average. Okay. And I understand that the current average is $105,000 a year. And I understand that some full professors make way less than that. There's a reason why some full professors make way less than the 105,000, and some make more than the 105,000. And I understand it's an average. However, the state universities, these professors, we have to remember that they're paid with taxpayer funds. Okay, so unlike the private sector, this is make-believe land. And this is the only place where you can take money from people and that money is taken from people and not necessarily given back in a form of a service or a product. Because in the real world, in the private sector, the consumer decides to spend money with you and then they get something in return. In the public sector, and the way the public sector works, you take money from people and you're not necessarily getting something in return, but your money's still taken away from you. And I do understand that not the entire salary is not paid for with all taxpayer money. But if they want an increase, it's got to come from somewhere. So they're either going to have to increase taxes, a percentage of the salary is paid for via the taxpayer dollars, and then a percentage comes from tuition and fees. So they're going to have to raise something somewhere, right? So you're either going to have to raise taxes or you're going to have to raise tuition. Either way, the little guy gets screwed. And these people just keep getting rich for no reason. And I'm going to get into that here in just a second, but it's very important that you know that more than 140,000 Illinois government sector workers, so professors, and professors are a large chunk of this 140,000 government sector workers and retirees. So people who aren't even working anymore, contributing to the society anymore at all, they receive compensation of $100,000 or more in annual compensation. They get either a pension or salary, okay? And we've got 140,000 of those folks. Now that number, the 140,000, has jumped by 50% since 2018. What does that mean, Kat? It means our government sector is ballooning and it's unsustainable. We've got regular Joe taxpayers out there. In McLean County, the average salary is $75,000. In Illinois, it's $54,000. It's unsustainable to have all of these people paying and having their money taken away to prop up the public sector. Go to the private sector. That's what I tell all of these people. If they want more money, you gotta go work for it and provide a service that people utilize. I mean, right? I mean, that's why private sector professors make more. It's because they provide a service that is of value. And I'm not saying that all the work that these professors do is not of value, but it's a different kind of value in the sense that you're taking money away from people who are not necessarily utilizing your services. So you're not going to have enough money to pay the professors exactly what they want to be paid. If you want to make $153, then you got to go into the private sector. Very simple. Okay. It's not sustainable because this is make-believe land. Okay. If you want to work in make-believe land where you take people's money and those people's money you're taking, they don't necessarily go to the college or benefit from the services you provide, then you got to stay in this. If you want to do that, then that's fine, but you're not going to make as much money as the private sector folks or the average of Illinois. And let me get into that. So Illinois State, their average full professor will make $105,000. Now, I understand there's people who make less than that and people who make more than that. That's the average. Now, the 105,000, it's lower than the 153 for the rest of the state. Why? It's because Illinois State is a teaching school. It's an art school. You're not hearing about people going to school there like Loyola, right? Or some of these Chicago schools where the doctors are coming out of. Okay, so that would make sense that their average is higher because you've got people who are doctors or heart surgeons or, people who, I don't know, are saving lives and not studying gender studies. You know what I mean? Like, it's a teaching school. And this is all factual, right? It's a teaching school. I think that they finally opened up like an engineering department a couple of years back. But it's not known for its, surgeons that are coming out of that place. Okay. It's also in McLean County, and a lot of people just continue to work in the school system after they leave Illinois State University, and they go to the school system, and then they get paid the $54,000 a year, which is the average teacher salary. Somewhere close to that. So, I mean, I don't know what these people are complaining about. I really don't know. I just don't understand how they live in this make-believe land where they truly believe that it's sustainable in this to have the public sector universities propped up by the taxpayer and to pay just these exorbitant salaries and just to continue doing that. You can't. It's not sustainable. So this is what the ISU union says. They said, quote, the average salary for full professors is just over $105,000. Okay. Naturally, it's going to be lower than the rest of the state. And when you compare that to the average salary statewide, because Illinois State University is kind of, not in, it's in Chicago. There's a lot of universities in Chicago where it all inflates the salary or the salary average, because you've got, surgeons who are doubling also, not as just professors, but conducting things like research. And I know ISU does all that stuff, but it's not known for its surgeons or its engineers or things that actually produce or make money. You've got a lot of people leaving and making, teacher salaries. So you're not producing somebody who makes a ton of money. So you can't ask for $153,000. I don't see how that's so hard to understand. But they say the average salary for full professors is artificially high because a handful of folks make much more than that. Okay, so a handful of folks. I'd be curious, is this handful of folks that make much more than that and they artificially create a higher average? I'd imagine that those people are probably doctors, or maybe like in the field, the engineering field, the engineering professors, people who actually provide a ton of value. Your gender studies professor is, of course, going to make maybe $70,000 a year, and then your engineering professor is going to make, $200,000, $300,000 a year. Right. And it does inflate the average a little bit, but it's not artificial. It's for a reason. You've got some high earners and you've got some low earners. It's because Becky in gender studies doesn't add anything of value to society. Okay. I'm sorry, but, and like, I hate to say that, but that's just the way the real world works. If you can build these structures, that's provides more value than if you teach. Unfortunately, if you teach, I mean, there's just not a whole lot of money there that you're putting into the economy. You're pumping out people who will make like $60,000 a year. You're not pumping out people who are, the doctors or the heart surgeons of the world. Not to disparage teachers at all. This is just the way the real world works. There's people who, are paid what they're worth. You're paid what you're worth. You're not worth $153,000. Okay. So I just don't understand what you got to be out of your damn mind. You've got to be out of your damn mind, especially when you consider the average salary of McLean County, which is just over 75,000. And you're asking to make 153,000. That is your ask. You're asking to inflate your averages to 153,000, which means across the board, people are going to be making more. And that's just not sustainable for the taxpayer. So, I mean, that I had to bring that up this morning. I just don't understand this make-believe land, where Becky in gender studies makes $100,000 a year. I'm sorry, honey, that's not going to happen. And if you want to do that, go into the private sector. There's a place for you to make that kind of money as a gender studies teacher. You probably won't, because the private sector is the real world, and the gender studies probably doesn't even really exist in the private sector because it's so worthless, right? But you're not going to make that kind of money in the public sector. Why? Because you're taking money from people who are not necessarily receiving that service back. Okay, so anytime you have that, you are going to make substantially less than the private sector folks. And Illinois state specifically is going to have a lower average than that of the rest of the state, because the public universities around the state, some of them focus on things like pumping out doctors or heart surgeons, like actual doctors, not the Jill Biden types. Actual doctors who, perform surgeries, and actual engineers who build structures, So, I mean, they're going to get paid more. Why? Because those jobs are harder than teaching a 5-year-old their ABCs. Their main focus at Illinois State University, correct me if I'm wrong, has always been teaching, and specifically an emphasis on elementary ed, or younger kids. And I'm sorry, but teaching the kid their ABCs is not as difficult as heart surgery. So therefore, you are not pumping out a value that warrants you getting paid $153,000 a year. You just don't provide that value. Money means something. And to these people, they think that their money just grows on trees. And it just bothers me so much, because it's just like, it's my money. Yeah, I'm not going to pay Becky in gender studies $100,000 salary. I will not do it as the taxpayer, especially when I'm not utilizing those services. Now, I am a grad of Illinois State University, so that should also tell you something. Okay, I know that the school is not pumping out heart surgeons, okay, like they are in Chicago. And even then, I think that the salaries are exorbitantly high and it's unsustainable. You've got some of these professors who are making like nearly $400,000 a year. That's just not sustainable at public universities. It's just not. You can't pay somebody that much money at a public university, like I said, because that's it's make believe land, because you're taking money from people who aren't necessarily using that service. Now, you're providing more value if you're somebody who is a heart surgeon and you're training more heart surgeons, and then I would kind of say, okay, maybe we can pay you a couple 100,000, 300,000 max, but anything higher than that, that's just insanity. So yeah. All right. I do have to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Kamala Harris faking having a beer. Quite literally, she didn't even drink the beer. She took maybe a sip of it with Gretchen Whitmer. It was a weird PR stunt. That's next on Conservative Cat. Hey, good morning. So do appreciate you tuning in. Colleges and public schools, biggest money funnel and salary abuse and pension abuse for decades. Yes, I don't know how hard it is to see this. I mean, maybe for colleges, public universities that are pumping out these amazing heart surgeons, right? Then they provide that kind of value, right, to where it's justifiable that we're giving you a $153,000 salary, but it's ballooned over the years. I'm talking 140,000 people in the state of Illinois who are receiving pensions and are receiving compensation of over $100,000. That's just not sustainable, especially when it's ballooned since 2018 by 50%. That's an increase of 50% from 2018. It's what the hell are you doing? You're taxing people who make $54,000 a year, a bunch of $54,000 a year folks, or $75,000 a year folks, whatever you want to say. You're taxing that body, and they make substantially less than the $150,000 folks, and they're working their tails off providing services that people actually want and utilize. And here in the private sector, and then in the public sector, they take your money and provide a service, and you may or may not use that service. I mean, the whole concept of public schooling, I mean, just in general, I just don't agree with, for multiple reasons. But you naturally are going to be making less in the public sector. Why? Because people aren't willing to pay you for that service. I mean, if they were willing to pay you for that service, then you would be, if I'm going to pay tuition, in a private sector, that we know where all that tuition is going. It's for that service. I love it. HR and comp benefit structure are a consulting system scam. Most of these public servants live in money funnel pay to play bubble, and they never left grade school or the system technically. That's what I always say, is that a lot of these people, they're just afraid of going into the private sector and actually working and providing a service that people want. We are artificially propping up the public sector with taxpayer money. It would not survive. It would not survive without taxpayer funds. Okay. And you've got your skimmers. You've got people who will skim off the top, right? You've got your administrative costs and things like that, and that all happens in the private sector as well. But they understand that the money could dry up. Now, in this make-believe land of the public sector, the money never dries up, because you've got the taxpayer and you can just increase taxes whenever you want. So they don't have to worry about getting these raises, or it's the safe bet. You've actually got to be somebody in order to be a professor at a private university, and you've actually got to work pretty hard. Now, I'm not saying some of the people in the public sector don't work hard or anything like that. I'm saying that system breeds an environment where Becky's can walk in, do absolutely nothing, teach some kids about gender studies, tell them they're transgender, and collect $150,000 paycheck. That's in no world does that make any sense. Okay, so there's a reason why ISU's averages are lower, the 150 or the 105. There's a reason why. It's because they're not producing these heart surgeons or engineers or anything like that. So they're getting paid exactly what they're worth. Okay, any more than what they've already make, which is way above the average salary of an Illinoisan or the average salary of a McLean County resident. They're already getting paid way more than the average Joe. Okay, so any more than that, you're going to just destroy the area. Okay, property taxes are insane. We pay some of the highest property taxes in the nation. You are going to drive people out of Illinois, which is already happening. We start to see that, and our public universities are going to be empty, and you're not going to have any kids to teach, but you're still going to wind up collecting a check because they'll just increase the taxes on the few to make up for the loss of taxes that they're getting when people leave the state. All right, go ahead, smash that like button. We're going to be back. I know it's kind of complicated, but it's also not. Just understand that they are propping up the public sector with taxpayer funds, and they continue to do this, and it's unsustainable. And no matter how many times they tell you they're underpaid or the figures they use, it's a lie. It's an outright lie. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Christina texting in. She goes, colleges and public schools, public universities, biggest money scam and biggest money funnel and salary abuse and pension abuse for decades. Yes, 140,000 people in the state of Illinois are getting paid with taxpayer funds, and they are making more than $100,000 a year. So you've got retirees, you've got government workers. They're all making over $100,000 a year. Meanwhile, you're making average $54,000 a year. Or the average Joe is trying in McLean County $75,000 a year. Okay, these people make so much more than you. It's not even funny, and they provide you a service that you don't necessarily want or need. Okay, for example, yesterday I had to go get a bunch of stamps. I was mailing out thank you notes for my wedding. Recently got married, and I got a bunch of stamps. I was thinking to myself, you gotta be kidding me. 73 cents a stamp. It has never been that high. A few months ago, when I mailed out the invitations, it was like 50 cents a stamp. 73 cents a stamp. And my packages that always come through the United States Postal Service are thrown, broken. They barely get here on time. A lot of my invites didn't get to the people that I needed them to get to, so I had to send out more, order more online. I mean, it was $73 or $73. I had to buy 100 stamps. And I was like thinking to myself, this is a crappy service, and I'm paying taxes for the service to exist. The U.S. Postal Service, right? I pay taxes, and it goes to these people's salaries and their pensions. And I love the United States Postal Worker. They're great. And I'm not demeaning or trying to disparage the workers themselves. However, it just doesn't make any sense why this industry even exists, or that sector even exists, to be honest with you. I know I sound extreme, and I'm not anti-government. There's definitely things that the private sector can't do, like national security. Okay. Or, maybe policing, but even then, I'd be totally cool with having a private security team. Governor J.B. Pritzker has one. Wouldn't it be cool if I could have one or afford to have a private security team? But they take away my guns and my money, so I can't afford a private security team. I definitely think there's room for government. I'm not an anti-government individual, but the more I start to see how crappy these services are and what they provide, I'm just like, really? I just spent $73 to mail out 100 or so envelopes, and I guarantee at least 1/4 of them won't even get to the individuals I address them to. 90, I would say, maybe like, to be fair, maybe 90% of them, maybe about 10 envelopes won't even get to the place on time, or won't even get to the individual I'm intending it to get to. It usually gets lost, and I'm sorry, I just don't understand why. I mean, on top of the taxes, I've got to pay the fees. I mean, for what? A crappy service? This is make believe land. It's make believe, because in the private sector, that just wouldn't happen. You provide, you pay for a product, and if the product is terrible, you won't go to that store ever again. Man, it's wild. I just can't believe. Our founding fathers would be rolling around right now. They're probably rolling around in their graves right now, because they were upset because they taxed their tea a little too much. It was like a 10% tax, not even, maybe 2%. And if they were to see what we're doing now, 73 cents a stamp, plus I got to pay you taxes, and I'm not even getting the service that I need. Like, in no world does this make sense. All right, I want to get to Kamala Harris and her PR stunt. So Kamala Harris, she was sitting down with Gretchen Whitmer. Now, Gretchen Whitmer, she's a very cringy individual. She's been doing these really weird, cringy Kamala Harris endorsement videos, and she quite literally, let me describe this video for you, had a girl with some really weird ambiance music kneeling, and Gretchen Whitmer was feeding this girl a Dorito. I know it sounds weird, because it is. And I mean, this campaign tries to out cringe itself day by day. And I don't know what they were thinking when they had, this governor, Whitmer, who wasn't kidnapped, by the way. She sat down with Kamala Harris, and they pretended to have a beer together. And they didn't even actually drink the beer. She might have sipped it, Kamala Harris. But they sat down and had a beer. I don't know who thought this would be a great idea. Meanwhile, you can't afford groceries. You've got Kamala Harris out there kicking back, relaxing, and faking having a beer with Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Here's what it sounded like. Here we go. Just sit down at the bar. Gretchen asked, "Are you more of a wine person?"
I'm having what she's having. It's an Oberon, and it's made right here in Kalamazoo, which many are calling Kamalazoo. It's yeah. Cheers. Okay, cheers. Cheers. Great rally.
Okay, she barely takes a sip of the beer. I think she might have gotten mostly foam, Kamala Harris. But then, you can tell it's fake, because they ask, Madam Vice President, what kind of beer are you having? She goes, I'll have what she's having. The reason why she says that is because she has no idea what to order, because she's never drank a beer at a bar before. That's how elitist this woman is. She actually hasn't done this before, and she's pretending to be like you and having a beer, and talking strategy, political strategy with her girlfriend, Gretchen Whitmer, right? She's nothing like you, Kamala Harris. Meanwhile, we've got Donald Trump over there, and he does not pretend to be like you. Now, he is of the people, right? And he, shakes hands, signs autographs, and things like that. But never have I seen Donald Trump try to pander to people and act like he doesn't have all of the money in the world, right? He doesn't. He doesn't say, "Oh, I'm from the middle class," or try to pander to people. She's not from the middle class. I've broken that down here on the show multiple times. But Trump was holding a rally while she was doing this with over 20,000 people. There was 20,000 people inside the Madison Square Garden, but then there were tens of thousands of people outside who were trying to get in and wanted to get in, but they couldn't. They just wanted a glimpse of Donald Trump. Now, we've got Kamala Harris here pretending to have a beer like the little people do, right? Like you do, like you pleb. You go out and you have beers, right? So she's pretending to be like you. And the fact that the media wants the masses to believe that she's, nothing more than, authentic. The media wants you to believe that she's authentic. She's not. She's genuine. She's joyful. That's what the media is going to try to make you believe with this stupid little PR stunt. And they think that you are as dumb as they are. And they're wrong. This did nothing, absolutely nothing to appeal to male voters. I don't know if that's what they were doing. She was having trouble appealing to male voters. She said this on the microphone, which is a terrible strategy. You don't want to admit you're losing. I don't know if she realized the mic was on or not. She should have realized it because there were cameras in her face and there was a microphone. I don't know if she thought that the microphones were turned off or what, but she was talking about how she was having troubles with the male vote. And I don't know if this was their attempt to appeal to the male voter, but it didn't work, obviously. How many times has Trump caught himself because of the microphones were still on? I've never heard Trump get caught on a hot mic, actually, ever. And I don't think that this woman realizes that she's a public figure. I don't think that she takes her job seriously. I don't think she's a serious person. She's got to be she's dumb. I mean, there's a bunch of cameras recording. Did you forget that they were recording you? There's a camera in your face. Why would you say something you're not supposed to say? But she doesn't take her job seriously. That's what it is. And I don't even think she understands that she's a public figure. And I got to take a quick break, but we can't afford gas. We can't afford groceries. Meanwhile, we've got illegals pouring in. We've got them taking over apartment complexes. We've got the North Carolina hurricane victims still, lost all their belongings. They're still, suffering. And then we've got Kamala Harris out here pretending to have a beer with her, gal pal, Gretchen Whitmer. It just bothers me. All right, I'll be right back. It's Conservative Cat. Hey, good morning. I so do appreciate you taking communion from the devil. Man, it was really weird. I don't know. This is probably one of the weirdest campaign videos I've ever seen Kamala do, and that's truly saying something. I think the weirdest campaign commercial or the weirdest thing to come out of this election cycle is definitely Gretchen Whitmer feeding seductively a woman Dorito to like some weird ambiance music. That was weird. But this PR stunt didn't do anything because, in fact, it only enraged people further because, you've got illegal immigrants in your neighborhoods. You've got apartment complexes just completely being taken over by Venezuelans in Aurora, Colorado, and in Chicago. They'll tell you, no, that's not happening. But there was a 911 call, of course, from the Chicago police. They were calling in dispatch, talking about how Venezuelans, they were on motorcycles in the courtyard of this apartment building and that they were in this apartment building with guns. But then the Chicago PD comes out and says, oh, no, that didn't happen. It was just a misunderstanding. It was just a false alarm. Okay. You had a couple of police officers calling into dispatch saying, hey, I'm going to respond to this. I bet it was happening. And they're just coming out and they're trying to downplay it. But anyway, I mean, we know in San Antonio, we know in Colorado, we see the videos of the Venezuelan migrants taking over these apartment complexes. So while that's happening, we have her relaxing, having a beer, and it's completely staged. It's a photo shoot. Yeah, only a few. No big deal. Yeah, like that one, I forget who it was, but it was on MSNBC, but they were talking to JD Vance, and they tried to downplay the fact that there's only, a few. Look, there's only a few apartment complexes that have been taken over. Okay, that's a few too many taken over by Venezuelans. Okay, that's called terrorism. That's what it is. It's terrorism if you're taking over and holding hostage. That was happening in Aurora, Colorado, beating people. They were beating the landlord. They beat him. He had black eyes, bloody lip. He looked like he really took a beating from these Venezuelan migrants who took over the apartment building. Okay. So yeah, it is a big deal. We're going to be right back. I'm going to go grab another quick cup of coffee, but we're going to be right back. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Subscribe today. News and talk of Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. Yes. So meanwhile, you're dealing with Venezuelan migrants taking over your apartment buildings. You're dealing with not being able to afford grocery and gas. You've got Kamala Harris out there at the final days before the election, relaxing, having a beer in a staged photo shoot. I mean, this is so pathetic. This is so pathetic. And she's one of the weirdest governors in America. I think that's pretty clear, considering that weird TikTok she posted, Gretchen Whitmer, where she had a girl on her knees feeding her a Dorito to like some weird ambiance music, and it felt seductive. It felt sexual. And I don't know. That's that's why I call Gretchen Whitmer one of the weirdest governors. Governor J.B. Pritzker, of course, was featured in a TikTok with her as well. And they did this weird like sports jersey. I don't even know what they were doing. I know it was for Kamala Harris. It was some sort of campaign video, but I couldn't really understand what they were saying with the sports jerseys. um, but Kamala Harris, she can't pretend to be serious. She can't even pretend to be serious. She's not serious. She doesn't take her job seriously. Everything is a joke to her. And she wants to become the most powerful person in the world. And she wants to do it without even deserving it. Okay. Earlier in the show, we were talking about salary increases for ISU professors. And I'm not saying that not all of them, it would be great if you could make $153,000 a year, but that's not sustainable because you're in the public sector. Okay. And plus you're not pumping out, doctors, heart surgeons, or engineers out of Illinois State University. You're just not. It's not that type of school. You're pumping out teachers, and it's substantially less difficult to teach a 5-year-old their ABCs, if you're pumping out teachers, it's less difficult than heart surgery. I'm sorry. I know that might be a controversial take and people might be screaming at the sky, but it's true. Okay. I mean, that's the truth. And you don't deserve it. Okay. You don't deserve the $153,000 that you want, the Illinois average salary of the professor, which is higher because of places like Chicago, Loyola, things like that, where you've got people pumping out doctors in Chicago, or heart surgeons, or engineers. You've got engineering schools, public universities that have an emphasis on engineering. That's not Illinois State University. And much like Kamala Harris, she doesn't deserve it. She didn't run in a primary. Hillary Clinton did not deserve the presidency. She didn't win her primary. They stole it from Bernie Sanders using the superdelegates. She didn't do anything to deserve being in this position at all. She was picked because she has a darker complexion. And she is a woman. That's why she was picked by Joe Biden. And you've got her sleeping with a married man and then getting a job in that married man's office, as he's a lawyer. She got a job in his office. She doesn't even care to try to pretend to be serious for 5 seconds. She doesn't even take her job even remotely seriously. So she just sips beer. I mean, that's what she does. So I don't know how somebody with one of the lowest IQs I've ever seen. I'm not a smart person, okay? I'm a mouth-breathing redneck, okay, from middle of nowhere, Illinois. However, I think I'm a little bit smarter than this woman, okay? She's got the lowest of IQs. And I don't know how she forgot that she was being recorded. She was caught on a hot mic saying that men, aren't voting for her. I don't know how she got caught on a hot mic, being that the camera was still in her face. Maybe stop talking until the camera's out of your face and the microphones are out of your face, okay? So rather than actually fixing something like she has the power to do, she's 10 steps away from the Oval. She doesn't fix the mess she created. She would rather sit and pretend to have a beer. She didn't even drink it, by the way. It was like she barely took a sip of the foam. I think she just put it to her lips, the beer. And she would rather sit there, mock you, and, gaslight the media, or gaslight you through the media into thinking that she is joyful. Okay, that's what she's going to be, the joy in your life. Rather than actually fixing your issues, she wants to be the joy in your life and gaslight you into thinking that she'll be the joy in your life. This is tyrannical. This campaign video is absolutely tyrannical. When we come back, I do want to talk about Kamala Harris calling Trump literally Hitler. And now we've got a Holocaust survivor. He's an Auschwitz survivor. His name is Jerry Wartsky. And he's speaking out, and he says that he knows more about Hitler than Kamala will know in 1,000 lifetimes. And he says it's disingenuous and it's disgusting of Kamala Harris to call one of the most pro-Israel presidents we've ever had, Donald Trump, Hitler. So we're going to be listening to him next. That's Jerry Wartsky. He's an Auschwitz survivor on Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. She's female Pritzker. I don't know. Jennifer Pritzker is the female Pritzker, I guess. Have you guys seen? I mean, I maybe I should pull this up. Jennifer Pritzker is, I'm convinced, just Pritzker in drag. 100%. I don't think that this individual is this has got to be Pritzker in drag. It's got to be Pritzker in drag. Let me look this up. Here we go. I'm going to share this with you. You're going to love this photo. Trans billionaire. Okay, here we go. You tell me what you think this looks like. That is definitely JB in drag. I don't think Jennifer Pritzker is a real person. That's got to be JB. It's got to be JB in drag, right? 100%. I don't know if that's a real person. But yeah, so we've got so much to get to today. I do want to talk about, of course, Kamala Harris calling Donald Trump quite literally Hitler. Donald Trump is one of the most pro-Israel presidents. The more I read the Bible, the more I realize he's super pro-Israel. So he moved the capital of Jerusalem to, or he moved the capital back to Jerusalem, the capital of Israel back to Jerusalem. And he's done a lot for the Israel community. And the whole entire Bible actually is about, I mean, I would say if I had to summarize the Bible, it's about the Jewish plight and their issues and their conflicts. And it's about humans and our sin and what happens when we sin. But it's all about the Jewish people being, unfairly persecuted throughout history. I just read through the book of Esther because I had to, being that Kamala Harris kind of compared herself to Esther. And I was like, okay, let's figure out what Esther's really all about. So I read through the book of Esther, and I mean, my jaw dropped. I was like, okay, if anybody is like Esther, it's Donald Trump, in that she almost got herself killed trying to save the Jewish race from annihilation. Donald Trump, he's going to try to end this war. He said it multiple times. Notice how Kamala Harris does not talk about ending the wars. She never talks about ending the wars. She doesn't get out there and say, oh, I'll end it day one. Donald Trump is the one who's promising to end the wars, to save the Jewish race and to save the Israeli people. So you've got this guy who wants to end these wars, and he comes out there and he says it, and he quite literally almost died in the process, i.e. the assassination attempts, right? Esther, she had to go before the king, and she was almost going to be killed, probably because you couldn't be going before the king without being summoned. Back in those days, that was like signing your own death warrant or your own death certificate if you wanted to address the king without being summoned. But she did it anyway because she knew that the annihilation of the Jews was imminent, and she needed to beg the king and ask the king really to remove this decree that his right-hand man had made to, annihilate the Jews on a specific day. Every year. I think it was every year or every month, something like that. I think it was every year. There was a specific day, and the decree said we're going to kill all the Jews on this day of this year. And it was women and children, and Esther had the strength and the courage to address the king and ask the king to remove this decree. What actually wound up happening was, hey, I can't remove the decree, but let's give you the right to defend yourself, Israel. Let's give you the right to defend yourself, Jewish population. So we are going to be right back talking about this Holocaust survivor and how he says that Kamala Harris is disingenuous and disgusting for comparing Trump to literally Hitler. That's next. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Yes, we've been chatting about Kamala Harris and her just really inauthentic staged photo shoot where she pretended to drink a beer with one of the worst governors, I think, in American history, Gretchen Whitmer. And that was just so weird. She had a camera in her face, obviously microphones in her face, and she was caught on the microphone talking about how the men just won't vote for her. I don't think she meant to say that on the microphone, at least. And I've never seen Trump caught on a hot mic. Like, text me, 309-451-9299. Have you ever seen Trump caught on a hot mic? No, it's because he takes his job seriously and he acts appropriately when he's out in the public. He acts like a public figure, right? And you've got Kamala Harris out there acting like, I don't even know, a sorority girl pretending to drink with her gal pal at the bar. Who thought that would be as something that gets the male vote. I don't know who thought it. Anyway, I want to get to this Holocaust survivor. His name is Jerry Wartsky. And he's speaking out. He claims he knows more about Hitler than Kamala Harris will in 1,000 lifetimes. And he says, it's just disingenuous. It's really unhinged of Kamala to go out there and say that Donald Trump is like Hitler or is Hitler. I mean, she says Trump is literally Hitler and a threat to freedom everywhere. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And the worst thing about that is that Trump is the most pro-Israel president. I mean, he moved the capital to Jerusalem. I think he's the most pro-Israel president we've ever had. So let's take a listen. Here we go.
My name is Jerry Wartsky. I'm 94 years old and survivor of Auschwitz and the Death Marches. Adolf Hitler invaded Poland when I was 9 years old. He murdered my parents and most of our family. I know more about Hitler than Kamala will ever know in 1,000 lifetimes. For her to accuse President Trump of being like Hitler is the worst thing I've ever heard in my 75 years living in the United States. I know President Trump, and he would never say this, and Kamala Harris knows this. She owes my parents and everybody else who was murdered by Hitler an apology for repeating this lie.
Why should the Jewish people support President Trump?
Because he's a mensch. I believe that President Trump is definitely going to be good for Israel, because in everything that he's done up to now was in favor. He never double-crossed anyone, and he never showed any weakness. Watching President Trump pray for the hostages at the Ohel and spend time with him so meaningful. He has always stood with the Jewish people and the state of Israel.
Yeah, so, the left demands that we see Trump as Hitler. And they do this with every Republican president. I think every Republican president since like the 1970s, they did it to Reagan. They call him Hitler. And I don't know, Barack Obama will get out there and say, oh, well, we've got to stop being so divisive. And it's like, you guys are the ones who are divisive. You've literally called every Republican president Hitler. The left demands that we start comparing apples to banana brains when then it should be noted that the Democrats are the closest thing to Nazis since the Nazis were a thing. Okay. So if you want us to start comparing, people to Hitler, I would say that y'all are the closest thing to Nazis since the Nazis were a thing. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9 The News and Talk at Bloomington Normal.
Doing this fixed my prostate.
Hey, good morning. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day. Let me actually look this up. I I don't know if that was a hot mic. I think somebody was recording him without his knowledge. Oh, hold on. I was checking to make sure that the Rumble was live. I hope that the Rumble is live. If you guys can't hear me, let me know. It is supposed to be live. I did have an issue with Rumble today, so if I'm getting like slap back or something, let me know. And if you have a hard time hearing me, but let me look this up. I want to see. I'm pretty sure that Donald Trump was caught saying that, not on a hot mic, but somebody recorded him without his knowledge. I don't know. On a hot mic. 25. It's a 2005 conversation. God, that's hilarious that they brought that up. In 2016, he said in a conversation, in a 2005 conversation, grab him by the pussy. Let's see. I'm just a kiss. Blah blah blah. Okay, caught on tape. Recording obtained. I'm not seeing where this is at. A private conversation that took place many years ago. It was locker room banter. That's what. I don't know how that would have been like the media. Like, usually a hot mic is, the media is there and they record it, or like it's a microphone and he says it like near a microphone. I'm pretty sure. I can't figure it out because they're not going to say. But it was a private conversation. Trump on tape, taped comments. I don't know. It's hard to find out. I'll have to do some digging on that to see if it was a hot mic where he said that. But there is a big difference here. We've got Kamala Harris, a camera quite literally in her face. She's caught on hot mic all the time. There was one time where she was in like a Zoom call and she like went like this and she was like, we're live. And she was like informing her staff that they were live. And for some odd reason, this woman always gets caught on a hot mic because I don't think she takes the role of being a public figure seriously. In this instance, where he was caught saying this, now either it was a hot mic moment or he was being recorded in a private conversation, which seems more likely in that it was a locker room. I don't know, to be honest with you. Maybe it was a hot mic, but that would have had to been weird. That would have meant that the media was there. I don't think the media, it was like locker room talk is what he said, but I don't know why the media would be there with a private conversation. But it's different because it was back in 2005. He wasn't running for president back in 2005. Okay, now he was still like a celebrity. But he wasn't like a public figure or official or an elected official of any kind. She is the sitting vice president. You would think that she's briefed, and has a team of people to try to get her to not be caught on a hot mic, right? Don't say anything near the microphones. Don't say anything near the press that you don't want to be said. And she's got a camera on her face and she says this out loud where, she's losing with men. I don't know if she meant to say that, but I think that she like didn't realize that the mics were on with Gretchen Whitmer here. And she just started talking, like having a conversation with her gal pal about Democrat strategy. And I don't think that she meant to say that. It was Access Hollywood program that taped the comments made by Donald Trump about women, including the infamous remark grabbing them. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Access Hollywood. So I'd imagine that's a media group. So yes, a hot mic. Trump and Billy Bush were on the bus on their way to film an episode of Access Hollywood. Got it. Okay. Yeah. So hot mic. but totally different in the sense that he was a celebrity, not necessarily the sitting vice president of the United States. Probably didn't receive a ton of media training. This was also in 2005, so he was nowhere near, the presidency or in an elected official capacity where he would have received some sort of media training. You know, and he was a celebrity. I think he's held to a totally different standard. Also, he says that it was a private conversation, so it's different. When it's a private conversation that he's having. This was clearly a PR stunt. Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Thanks so much for being here. I so do appreciate it. We got so much to get to today. I encouraged you, the infamous quote by Donald Trump that was caught on a hot mic moment, grab him by the, and I can't say it on air, but you guys know the infamous quote from Donald Trump, and it was caught on a hot mic. Now, that was caught 2005. Billy Bush, Trump, they were on their way to film an episode of Access Hollywood, and that is a time where Trump was caught on a hot mic. Here's the big difference. That was in 2005, okay, and they dug it up during the 2016 campaign or 2016 race, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Here's the big difference. Trump was a celebrity. Yeah, sure, you want to call him a public figure, but he was more like, The Apprentice, right? And he was an actor or celebrity, and he wasn't held to the same standard as, the sitting vice president. The sitting vice president should have more media training. I don't know why she's always caught on hot mics. This isn't the first time she's been caught on a hot mic having a private conversation and saying something that she shouldn't be saying out loud, right, where she says it. And this is clearly like they are filming her. They've got a big old camera in her face, and there's microphones, boom mics all around. They're filming her and Gretchen Whitmer. This is clearly a planned campaign PR stunt. Okay, this is a stunt that they're doing, filming her, trying to make her look like she's, a joyful person and having a beer at this bar with her gal pal Gretchen. So the camera is in her face. Now, I don't think that was what happened in the case of Donald Trump. It wasn't like they were filming the episode of Access Hollywood. They were on their way to film the episode of Access Hollywood, and he was having a private conversation with someone, and the mic picked it up. Okay, the conversation with Billy Bush, where he said the infamous word, grab him by the, and he said, oh, this is locker room talk. This was 2005, by the way, and he was not the sitting vice president. So, I encouraged you guys, text me, let me know, 309-451-9299. Has there ever been an instance where Trump was caught on a hot mic? Good on you. Good job, listeners, where you said, hey, how about this one time? It's not the same. It's really not the same. You're comparing apples to oranges there, where you've got Donald Trump in 2005 when he was a celebrity, and he was kind of like, not I would say a public figure. He's not a public official in any kind of capacity. There is no need for him to be serious. He was on his way to film Access Hollywood. I don't know, The Apprentice. It's not really all that serious. You fired, it was all a joke. And he was in that space where he could do that. Now he's in a space of being a public figure, and in his space of like being an official, a president, he rarely gets caught on a hot mic, if ever. I don't think that there's been a time where he gets caught on a hot mic like that. Now, he just says what he feels. His mic is always hot because he just says what he's thinking all of the time. And he just is good at it. So I don't know. Kamala Harris is just not a very serious person. She doesn't take her job seriously. And I think that she gets caught on hot mics all of the time. And you would think that she wouldn't. Because she's got all of the media training in the world. You'd think that they'd tell her, hey, shut your mouth until the cameras are completely out of there and the mics are completely out of there. All right, I do have to talk a little bit about, I want to talk about the Nazi thing, where they called Donald Trump Hitler and Nazi, and then I played this clip of the Holocaust survivor. His name is Jerry Wartsky. He was saying, it's disgusting. And he goes, quote, I know more about Hitler than Kamala will in 1,000 lifetimes. That's what he said. And he says, I think that the Holocaust survivors are owed an apology because Donald Trump is the most pro-Israel president. He's a mensch. He will do whatever it takes to ensure that the Jewish race continues to thrive in Israel, and he moved the capital to Jerusalem. Right. And the left, they are the party of censoring. They're more like the Nazis. They're the closest things to Nazis that I can think of without actually being Nazis. If Nazis were still a thing, that would definitely be the Democrat Party, because they're fighting to censor people for politically incorrect thoughts. They're the ones who have the media doing their dirty work. They're the ones that censor in their favor. Okay, so they censored the Hunter Biden laptop story. The Facebook CEO, right, Mark Zuckerberg, he comes out and he says that the FBI and the federal government bullied him into censoring that information, the Hunter Biden laptop story. And that obviously favors their side. So the majority of anti-Semitism comes from the left. And to top it all off, they're literal socialists. They call themselves socialists. They have said that they are socialists. I mean, that's the equity and not equal opportunity, but equity. They're all about socialism. Hitler once said, quote, "We are socialists. We are enemies of today's capitalistic economic system for the exploitation." I'm quoting Hitler here. "We are socialists. We are enemies of today's capitalistic economic system for the exploitation of the economically weak." Who does that sound like? Okay. And then he says, "With its unfair salaries." Who does that sound like? With its unseemly evaluation of human being according to wealth and property instead of responsibility and performance. And we are determined to destroy this system under all conditions. Who does this sound like to you? Okay, unfair salaries, exploitation of the economically weak, capitalistic economic system. We are the enemies of capitalism. We're socialists. That's what he says. Quite literally, I'm quoting Hitler here. And I mean, that sounds really dang close to what Kamala Harris says on a daily basis and what the Democrat Party says. That's their entire platform. Okay. So Republicans are not literally Hitler. Okay. The left calling Republicans literally Hitler since literally Hitler. Okay. They've been calling Republicans that. It's because they're projecting. They're the ones who actually have this socialist ideology. They're the ones of the capitalistic, or they call themselves the enemies of the capitalistic economic system. And they say that Republicans, they're exploiting the economically weak and they're not paying them their fair wage, right? That's talking points of the left today. And that is what that is what Hitler said when he was around. I mean, they're saying the same things he said verbatim. So I don't know how long they're going to keep using this tactic. They, like I said, called Ronald Reagan, Nixon. They called them all Hitler. I mean, this is such an old tactic by the left. So I don't know how long they plan to use it, but it's pathetic and it's a level of projection not seen since the death of Hitler, since Hitler's death. They just keep projecting. There's no real difference between fascism and socialism or communism. The two are identical. And as Wartsky said, this Holocaust survivor, he said Kamala owes everyone an apology, everyone who was murdered by Hitler an apology. She needs to do that. So, like I said, it's projection. I gave you a quote from literally Hitler, and it sounds just like Kamala Harris. Like if Kamala Harris were to come out and say, "We are the socialists, we are the enemies of today's capitalistic economic system for the exploitation of the economically weak and its unfair salaries," right? If she were to come out today and say that, I would be like, yeah, that sounds like something she'd say on the campaign trail. Hitler said that. I'm quoting him. All right. Like I said, it's unclear if Kamala Harris daydreams during her interviews. It seems like she's not really there during her interviews and she kind of wanders a bit. I think she's just daydreaming. And then when she starts to drift off and daydream, then she just starts rambling about Trump and abortion. Additionally, she often projects her insecurities onto him. In this specific instance, she somehow found the nerve to claim that Donald Trump was going after your Second Amendment. I what? What do you mean Donald Trump's coming after the Second Amendment? You're insane. All the evidence proves otherwise, that you're actually coming after the Second Amendment. Oh, like, I don't know, you actually coming out and saying you want to take all the guns away. Okay. So Kamala Harris sat down with Shannon Sharpie, and she started fear mongering about things that Trump has never said. He's never gone after your Second Amendment. She has said that she wants to do mandatory gun buyback, which means you have to give up your guns, and in exchange, the government will give you some money, right? And you're mandated to do that. She has come out on tape and has said that she wants that. That's a policy that she was advocating for, at least when she was running for the Democratic ticket in 2020 against Joe Biden and others. So let's take a listen here.
Unreasonable search and seizure. Your Fifth Amendment right, your Sixth Amendment right to an attorney.
A lot of rights going to be gone. The First Amendment.
But the First Amendment, the Second Amendment. Yes. Look, I'm in favor of the Second Amendment. I don't believe we should be taking anybody's guns away. He wants to terminate the Constitution of the United States. Unreasonable search and seizure.
What are you talking about? Okay. First off, I do need to point out, and for those of you watching, you'd see this. She starts out this clip with like the most unbelievable, irritating smirk on her face, and it really grinds my gears that she's like smirking while she's doing this, because it's so clear that she's the one who's been undermining the Constitution. Her administration has been undermining the Constitution, people's freedom of speech. I've told you about Mark Huck. He was the guy, the Catholic dad, who was protesting with his son outside an abortion clinic, and they tried to slap 11 years on him in prison. Okay, and they cited the FACE Act. You have the right to protest. You have your religious freedoms, and they tried to lock up Catholics for protesting outside of abortion clinics. That's what this administration did. And she didn't even really answer anything. She can't answer anything, this woman. So I think that if we asked Kamala Harris her last name, she would like break down, she'd trail off, and she'd start rambling about Trump and abortion. I don't even think if you asked her like straight up, hey, what's your last name? She would ramble about how Trump is going to sign a national abortion ban, or that he's behind Project 2025. So she's so bad at answering everything and anything. She can't answer anything. Thirdly, I want to talk about how she just blatantly is lying at this point. Okay. And she doesn't even bother to prove that it's true at all. That's how much she despises you. She refuses to provide any kind of evidence. When did Donald Trump ever say he wanted to take away your Second Amendment rights? So this woman, she actually recommended that we ignore the Constitution, that we sign an executive order using the presidency to go after people's guns and do a mandatory gun buyback. She said this during the debates. I'll play that clip here next on Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Whoa, good morning. Hey, it's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal, something you have to look forward to here in the show. John Fetterman comparing Trump to Taylor Swift. Yes. And he also explains to an elitist journalist what truck nuts are. Do you know what truck nuts are? Text me 309-451-9299. I'd love to hear your descriptions. I'll read them on the air if you text me. So John Fetterman, he has to describe to this journalist what truck nuts are because this journalist has no idea what they are. That just goes to show you how privileged and elitist and how out of touch with the people journalists actually are. Actually, so INBA, which is the Illinois News Broadcasters Association, I actually got a couple of awards for them when I was a lefty reporter. Now they'd probably be like, oh my gosh, rolling around, knowing what I do today on the radio. The people who operate that whole organization, the association, Illinois News Broadcasters Association. So I was looking and I came across something, and I guess Eric Sorensen spoke at one of their events, and I thought to myself, gosh, we have got to be so far gone in the journalism industry in order to have any government official be a keynote speaker at a journalism event. Okay, journalists should be adversarial with government, period, full stop. You need to be adversarial with the government if you are a journalist. That is what the greats, Edward R. Murrow, right? A nation of fools will beget will beget a people, a nation of sheep will beget a government of wolves. He said we need to be, alert, ready to go, not dumb, educated, and we need to check the government. Otherwise, they're going to be wolves. That's Edward R. Murrow, one of the greatest journalists of all time, saying that. Okay. And you've got journalists out there who are quite literally having government officials come and speak at their events. That would never have happened in Edward R. Murrow's day. So John Fetterman talking about Taylor Swift being as popular or being less popular than Donald Trump, actually, which makes sense because I think the only time Elvis Presley was the only time that Madison Square Garden was packed out like that. Elvis Presley, and Donald Trump had more people than Elvis Presley at Madison Square Garden because there were thousands of people outside the venue trying to get a glimpse of Donald Trump. So I think he's more popular than Elvis Presley, Taylor Swift combined. So before I took the break, I was telling you about how Kamala Harris actually thinks that we should just ignore the Constitution and suspend your gun rights. Take a listen to what was going on in the debates and what Kamala Harris said as it pertains to your gun rights. And she's claiming that Donald Trump wants to go after your guns. This is what she said during the Democratic debate. Here we go. Take a listen.
100 days, including banning imports of AR-15 assault weapons.
That's right.
President Obama, after Sandy Hook, more than 23 executive actions, and yet here we all are today. In recent days, former Vice President Biden has said about executive orders, some really talented people are seeking the nomination. They said, I'm going to issue an executive order. Biden saying there's no constitutional authority to issue that executive order when they say I'm going to eliminate assault weapons, saying you can't do it by executive order any more than Trump can do things when he says he can do it by executive order. Does the vice president have a point there?
Some things you can, many things you can't.
Let's let the senator answer.
Well, I mean, I would just say, hey, Joe, instead of saying no, we can't, let's say yes, we can.
Let's be constitutional.
So Joe Biden says, let's be constitutional. Let's be constitutional. And she goes, instead of saying, no, we can't, let's say yes, we can. Let's actually create an executive order that bans AR-15s. Like, quite literally, she said this. So when she says that Donald Trump is going after your Second Amendment rights, that's a lie. She is coming after your Second Amendment rights. That's the position. Excuse me, sneezed. Live radio, folks. That's the position she held during at least the Democratic presidential debates, and that was only a few years ago. So as she changed that dramatically from wanting to go and take your guns via executive order to not wanting to take your guns at all, and Donald Trump wanting to take your guns, I don't know what she's talking about. But here she is again talking about gun confiscation. Let's take a listen here. I want to share this clip. Let's go. Yeah, here we are.
I'm prepared to take executive action and put in place a ban on the importation of assault weapons into our country. But we still have to deal with the over 2 million assault weapons that are currently in the streets of America. And so a buyback program is a good idea. If Congress fails to act, I'll give them 100 days to put a bill on my desk for signature. And if they do not do it, I will put in place by executive action a comprehensive background check requirement and a ban on the assault weapons and importation of assault weapons into our country. I'm done.
And that's why we will work to pass universal background checks, red flag laws, and an assault weapons ban.
I'm prepared to take executive action and
Okay, there you go. She is going to place a ban on AR-15s. This is her taking your guns away. She says, "Oh, I'm not going to take your guns away. Donald Trump is going to take away your guns." What the heck is she talking about? Does anybody really buy this crap? Really? Does anybody buy it? Because I'm not buying it. You know, you're saying Donald Trump wants to take the guns. You have come out with your mouth and said it out loud that you want to take the guns away. So what does her staff tell her after these blatant lies? Do they treat her as if how do you not treat this woman as if she's objectively stupid? I mean, she comes out and blatantly lies like this and says that Donald Trump is coming after your Second Amendment when she herself has said, "I want to ban guns in this country." So I don't know. I think that she thinks that you're dumber than she is, or you're as dumb as she is, and I'm sorry, she's just mistaken. This should be a scandal in and of itself that she's out there blatantly lying like this. And if we had a serious media, they'd call out the lies and they'd do what I just did and pulled up all of these clips of her saying that she wants to ban guns in this country and then play that side by side with her saying that Donald Trump wants to ban guns. Kamala, she's trying to play both sides here, you know, with Tim Walz and getting him out there with the, you know, photo shoot where he's got the gun, right? And he didn't even know how to load the dang thing. This is one of the most undemocratic elections in American history. This woman has received no votes. No votes. Okay. So she says that she's wanting to save democracy, but she's doing it without democracy and truth. Like, quite literally, she didn't run a primary. She received no votes. And then she's out there blatantly lying. I just called out the lie. Okay, I played the clip of her saying, "I want to ban guns." She does want to ban guns. You can't find a clip out there where Donald Trump says, "Yeah, we need a national assault weapons ban." It doesn't exist. He is not coming after your guns. And I don't even think he's as pro-2A as I'd like him to be. He did a weird thing with bump stocks. But you're trying to save democracy by not having a democratic election and process and going about the process democratically, and then you also want to save democracy by blatantly lying to the American people. That makes a lot of sense. All right, I do have to play this clip. John Fetterman comparing Trump to Taylor Swift. It's a really good one, and then he has to explain what Trump or truck nuts are. To this elitist journalist who has no idea what truck nuts are. Do you know what truck nuts are? 309-451-9299. Of course you do. You listen to this program. What an elitist. How do you not know, right? You clearly have never grown up in rural America, or you don't have any idea what rural America is like. I grew up in a small little town, and every single truck, every other truck, I should say, in the high school parking lot of mine had truck nuts on it. All right, I'll be right back. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Nobody needs an AR-15. That's where you're wrong, pal. Everybody needs an AR-15. I love AR-15s. Everybody should have an AR-15. Actually, I prefer like the big old shotgun, so I'm not even that great of a shot with an AR-15. Everybody says they're super accurate and like they're super easy to shoot. I actually like a lot of recoil. AR-15s are really easy in the sense that there's not a ton of recoil, and they are fun. I'm not great on an AR-15, but brother, I'm going to ask you this, and I hope that you're serious when I ask you this. Have you ever shot an AR-15? Like, seriously, you can't say that nobody needs an AR-15 without actually shooting an AR-15. If you've actually shot one, you wouldn't be so afraid of it. Okay. So that's what I always tell people, when they want to ban guns. Have you ever even shot a gun? When Kamala Harris was asked what kind of gun she has, she says Glock. Okay, what does that mean? Clearly, people who have guns don't say, oh, I just have a Glock. Okay, what kind? What kind of Glock do you have? Tim Walz clearly has never shot a gun. Clearly, by his way he was reloading his I think had a Benelli of some kind. I forget exactly what it was, but I'm not a big gun person. Like, I don't know a ton about them, but I have shot several, and I know that they're nothing to be afraid of. So when people say these things like nobody needs an AR-15, I really do wonder if I really hope that you're still listening, Trader Todd USA. Have you ever shot one? Really, if you've ever shot one, you wouldn't feel that way. I'm telling you. um, you must be talking about the dangly parts some operators hang from the back hitch. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. The dangly parts that people put on the back hitch mount. Yep. For gauging clearance to the ground. Yeah. Well, that's also, they actually serve a purpose, which not a lot of people know, is that they actually use it to gauge to see how far they are to the ground. Because if you're carrying a big load, right, a trucker, if you're carrying a big load, that can weigh your car down, and you might be touching the ground a little bit too close. So the truck nuts actually are there for a purpose. So great. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That point, but yeah, they actually do serve a purpose. So thanks for contributing. Go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're going to be right back talking a little bit about John Vetterman comparing Trump to Taylor Swift, and then he also explained truck nuts to this journalist who seemed not to know what they were. That's how out of touch these people are. How do you not know what truck nuts are? I see them all the time. I live in rural America, right? And these people, they need to get out and touch some grass, or talk to people outside of their liberal urban circles at the wine bar. I'll be right back. It's Conservative Cat. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button. We're going to be coming right back talking about John Fetterman. You're a conservative cat. I am usually not one for hyperbole, but this is probably one of the greatest clips to ever come out of the 2024 election cycle. I do really like Governor J.B. Pritzker and Gretchen Whitmer, where they do this really cringy bit or skit talking about sports jerseys. I think that is pretty good. But this is probably my all-time favorite clip coming out of the 2024 election cycle. So we'll be right back. Smash that like button and share this out with your friends. Good morning. Hey, it's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Find me on YouTube, find me on Rumble, and subscribe to the channel today. Earlier in the show, we were kind of talking about the ISU professors asking for more money. So Crystal Abel, McLean County board member and Democrat, left-wing Democrat, she posted this. She says 95% of full professors at Illinois State University are paid below average salary for full professors in the state. Well, there's a reason for that. Illinois State University, not your typical university in the sense that they aren't, pumping out heart surgeons, okay? This is traditionally a school where they pump out a bunch of teachers. Okay, so I know this is going to be a controversial take. Teaching 5-year-olds their ABCs is substantially less difficult than heart surgery. Okay, they're adding a lot of value if you're producing graduates who make a ton of money. Okay, and to provide a service that nobody else can provide. There's only a few people who can do heart surgery. A few people. I mean, I'd say there's not a ton of people who can do heart surgery. A ton of people can teach children their ABCs. It's not that difficult. And the pay reflects that. If you're producing people who make a ton of money, it makes sense that you get paid a ton of money yourself. Unfortunately, and if you don't like it, then go somewhere else to get paid. Go to the private sector so you can get paid the $153,000 that you want. Because make no mistake, that's what they're asking for, folks. That right now, average, and I understand some professors make less than this. Full professors, not associate professors, make less than the $105,000 because that's their average salary right now at Illinois State University is $105,000 per professor. Some make less. Becky in gender studies is definitely going to make less than $105,000, or she should, rightfully so. And then the engineering department, the professors who are, teaching the engineers, they're going to make substantially more than 105. Okay, so the average here is 105. Rightfully so. If Becky wants to make more money, then she should go to the private sector. The reason why Becky doesn't go to the private sector and she continues to teach gender studies in the public sector is because it doesn't work that way in the private sector. They're going to pay you pennies, and there's no room for you in the private sector at all. It only exists in the public sector because only in make-believe land can you take people's money, provide a service that they don't necessarily get at all. They take money away from you to give to this public university, and you might not even utilize their services at all. Okay, and it's job security for Becky. She doesn't want to do anything with her life. Okay, she wants to go and she wants to tell a group of kids that they're transgender and that there is no gender. There's no such thing as man and woman, and that it's all in a or there is no such thing as a binary. Right? That's what these professors want. They want to get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. Okay, that's what we're talking about here. At the end of the day, they want to raise their average from $105,000 to $153,000 a year. They want to raise that average, which means everybody across the board is going to have to see a pay bump. But that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You've got your engineering department; they're making money. They're making more than 105, right? And then your engineering or your gender studies, they're making less than 105, and then you get the average of 105. Illinois State University does not have heart surgeons and things like that coming out there in droves. Okay, you're not producing those types of people, so therefore your professors shouldn't be making over $153,000 average. And I give this statistic out there. More than 140,000 Illinois government sector workers and retirees, so people who are receiving pensions, not even contributing to society anymore, they had contributed to society. And I'm not against pensions and retirees or anything like that, but they're receiving more than $100,000 in annual compensation, 140,000 Illinois government sector workers. That is ballooned since 2018 by 50%. It's a 50% increase. This is unsustainable. For the Illinois State University professors to be asking to increase their average to 153 makes no sense. Okay, the average is high in Illinois because you've got places like Chicago that pump out heart surgeons. Okay, we were talking about that a little bit earlier, and just for context, the average Illinoisan makes $54,000 a year, so they're making well above what the average Illinoisan makes currently. The average McLean County resident makes $75,000. So they're making well above what the average McLean County resident makes. I don't understand their gripe. I do understand it. They want Becky from the Gender Studies Department to be able to make $105,000. Not going to happen, sweetheart. Not going to happen. Go out, get a real job. There you go. Go out into the private sector if you really want to make money. She won't do it, because the private sector doesn't operate that way. They pay pennies to their gender studies professors as well, even if they have that program. Most private colleges don't even have those types of programs. It only exists in the public sector because it's make-believe land. Now, before I took the break, I was telling you about John Fetterman. This is probably, and I'm not much for hyperbole. Actually, just kidding. I love hyperbole. I love exaggerating. But I try to at least provide you the truth and do it in a calm manner sometimes. I will say that this is the greatest clip from the 2024 election. Not much for hyperbole, but this is the greatest clip. I've seen a lot of good ones. My favorite, personally, to come out of the 2024 election cycle is Gretchen and JB doing this weird standoff thing in their office, and they're like swapping sports jerseys. And it's supposed to be some sort of Kamala Harris endorsement or campaign video. I love that one. That is one of the greatest clips to come out of the 2024 election cycle. I could watch that on repeat. Now, John Fetterman, a U.S. Democrat, or a U.S. Senator Democrat, he had to explain to this smug New York Times reporter what truck nuts are. Yes. What are truck nuts? Well, they're funny, number one. Number two, somebody pointed this out. You're right. I kind of forget about this part. They actually do serve a purpose. So it's for gauging the clearance to the ground. So truckers, a lot of the times, will use truck nuts. It's dangly bits that hang from the hitch of a truck. And if you're carrying something, or if you're, got a big load, sometimes that can weigh down your car or weigh down the truck, and you're close to the ground there. And it's used kind of for gauging clearance to the ground to make sure that you're not brushing up against the ground there, that your load isn't too large to be gliding across the ground in your truck. So they actually do serve a purpose. But also, like, who doesn't know what these are? I mean, I grew up in rural America. Maybe that's why I know what they are. I mean, there were truck nuts on like every other car in the high school parking lot, the high school that I went to, right? So it was hilarious because you had to have John Fetterman explain to this elitist journalist. And I told you about how the INBA, I actually had all kinds of awards and scholarships and things from this organization when I was a leftist. Now that I do what I do, I bet they would be like rolling around and absolutely like, oh no, we don't claim her. She's a crazy right winger. But they had a public speaker, or they had a keynote speaker, and the keynote speaker was a government elected official. I mean, what? Journalism, you should always be adversarial with your government. Why in the world would you have government be the keynote speaker at a journalism event? It makes no sense. At an INBA event, wild to me. The Edward R. Murrows would be rolling around in their graves. All right, so this is John Fetterman explaining to this elitist journalist what truck nuts are because she doesn't know. Here we go.
I'll never forget. I live directly across the street from the steel mill, and we were doing an event there for Clinton. And I asked the union president, I'm like, hey, where we are on Trump? And he's like, yeah, probably half or 60%, two-thirds are voting for him. And I was like, oh, that sucks. And then immediately there was a guy getting off, and he had a truck, and he had truck nuts on it. You know what truck nuts are?
Do I look like I know what truck nuts are?
It's balls hung on the hitch of a truck, and he honked and he was like, "Go Trump," as he drove by, and it's like, hey, we're in trouble, and it's undeniable. And
do I look like I know what they are? Do I look like I know what they are? No, you don't. You look like you were genetically bred to do nothing but podcast for the New York Times, lady. Like, you have no idea about what life is like outside of your podcast bubble at the New York Times. Like, you were like, this is your purpose, and all you do is New York Times bubble. And I'm hanging out with my elitist buddies, and I'm going to these INBA events where my congressman speaks. Right? I mean, this is I just can't believe that this is where we're at in journalism. So I got to take a quick break, but we're going to play some more from that interview because Fetterman also compares Donald Trump to Taylor Swift. I'll be right back. It's Conservative Cat. Woo! Hey, here's John Fetterman talking about Hezbollah and the whole pager incident where, the Israeli Defense Forces, they had pagers and they it was genius to put bombs in them, essentially. So let's take a listen here to John Fetterman's response to this journalismer attacking him for saying, hey, yeah, this was smart of the Israeli Defense Forces to do it this way. Take a listen.
I just want to bring it back to your state, though, because you have gotten criticism from both Muslim groups and pro-peace Jewish groups. Last month, the Philadelphia and Pittsburgh chapters of the Council on American Islamic Relations, they issued a joint statement where they condemned you for saying that you loved Israel's pager attacks targeting Hezbollah in Lebanon.
I do. I absolutely.
Well, they said when our elected officials start condoning the civilian loss of life, our collective moral compass is irreparably harmed. That's a quote. And indeed, that attack did hurt and maim civilians.
It didn't. It was targeted for members of Hezbollah. No one uses beepers in that situation other than they were a member of Hezbollah.
It was a young child
that was a micro targeting to minimize civilians.
It was a young child who was killed, who was taking the pager to their parent.
Unfortunately, tragically, because Daddy was a member of Hezbollah. That's tragic. He brought that danger and evil into their home, and that's what tragically resulted in that poor child's death. And that.
Yeah. There you go. There's John Fetterman. I'm telling you, John Fetterman, I don't know what happened, but he's making more and more sense as time goes on. And he says, look, that pager idea was to minimize the risk of more civilian lives lost. Unfortunately, a child died, but it's because Daddy was a member of Hezbollah. And he brought that danger and evil into their home, and that's why that child is dead. So, I thought it was genius, the IDF and their pager targeting. He also said that Trump's popularity in Pennsylvania is similar to that of Taylor Swift. Fetterman expressed serious concern over Elon being like a Tony Stark endorsement. So Elon Musk is like, a real life Tony Stark from the Marvel series, right? People think of Elon Musk and when you think of Elon Musk, you think Tony Stark. And he goes on in this interview and he says, anybody who spends time driving around, you can see the intensity. You can see how popular Donald Trump is. And he says it's astonishing. He talks about a superstore full of Trump stuff. And he goes, it was like 100 feet long, this store, dozens of t-shirts, hats, and stickers. And he goes, it's almost like Taylor Swift swag. So there's something very special here that exists, and it's real. You have Elon Musk joining him, and a lot of people, that's like Tony Stark. He's an undeniably brilliant guy. This is what John Fetterman is saying. And he says, that's really going to matter. And he goes, I was alarmed. I was truly alarmed about that when Elon Musk started campaigning actively. Now, Taylor Swift, she kind of gave like a crappy endorsement, by the way. She made an Instagram post and it wasn't even all that great. All right, I got to go. But you guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye. I love you. And we'll do it all over again tomorrow morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. Talk to you soon. Hey, good morning, folks. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day. But yes, Kamala Harris says, I've raised $1 billion or so. Okay, Donald Trump's like, okay, I've got Elon Musk. I've got the Tony Stark, the in real life Tony Stark on my side. So he is one of the most popular politicians. Like I said, he filled up Madison Square Garden. The only person to have done that was Elvis Presley. And then he went beyond Elvis Presley's numbers, and tens of thousands of people were outside Madison Square Garden. So one of the most popular politicians, and then on top of that, he's got Elon Musk. We're totally winning. We're totally winning in 7 days. You guys have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. Love you.